Keeler of Mr. MIRTH, famed social media.
Died May 12th, age 31. Takes place today.
At Gus Trender's Country Estate Development.
Special train will take a coffin and mourn.
Orders from the Grand Central Station at 10 a.m.
How long do we have to wait for this train, Gus? I have an appointment with Celeste this afternoon. I'm meeting with Maria von Osberg to discuss our autumn wardrobe.
The train will be here at 10 o'clock, Judy.
I too have an appointment, you know, with Paquin. I don't understand why Lily is being buried at Bellamont anyway.
Gus insisted, Bertha. For once, he was quite adamant, so I gave in.
Do you think I'll need my overshoes, Mrs. Fisher? I never go anywhere without them, but I couldn't leave them on the left
Be
luggage.
daring, Percy. Leave them behind for once.
You look very pale, Lawrence. When I saw your face just now, it was as though you'd entered another world. Are you all right? Would you like to sit down? There's still a longish wait before the train comes.
No. I'm fine. Thank you, Gertie dear. I was just remembering things.
What things?
2 years ago, I met Lily, quite accidentally, here at Grand Central Station. I'd never seen her more radiant. Everything about her was vibrant and alive. I couldn't believe she was 29. It occurred to me that she must have cost a great deal to make. And a great many dull and ugly people must have been
The train arriving on track 2.
I wondered what she was doing in New York. Why she wasn't summering in Newport or Southampton. It was characteristic of her to always arouse speculation. I took luxurious pleasure in seeing her again, but wondered, what was she up to?
The train arriving on track 2 is the 3:30 from Tuxedo.
Lawrence Selden! What good luck! How nice of you to come to my rescue.
Well, surely, Miss Barch, you know that's my mission in life. May I ask, what form is this rescue to take?
Oh, almost any, even to sitting down and talking to me. Once it's out of quadrille, why not sit out a train?
Indeed. But what are you doing in New York this time of year, Lily? Shouldn't you be in the country?
I'm on my way from Tuxedo to the Gus Trender's house party at Bellamont. I've missed the 3:15 train, and there isn't another till 5:30. 2 hours to wait. They don't know what to do with myself.
Are you traveling alone?
Yes, I sent my maid ahead with all my luggage.
Well, why won't you go back to your aunt's house and wait in the cool? I take it you're still living with Mrs. Peniston.
Her house is closed for the summer. But what are you doing here, Lawrence?
Well, I'm on my way back to the office. I've been staying a few days with friends in the country.
My goodness, it's hot here. If you can spare the time, do take me somewhere for a breath of air.
I am entirely at your disposal. Shall we go to Sherry's for a cup of tea?
Okay.
Oh, excuse me.
So many people come to town on a Monday. Well, it's sure to meet a lot of bores there. I'm dying for tea, but don't you know of a quieter place?
The resources of New York are rather meager, but we'll invent something.
How delicious. Let us walk a little. What a hideous city this is. Other cities put on their best clothes in summer, but New York has to sit in its shirt sleeves. Oh, look. Someone has had the humanity to plant a few trees over there.
I'm glad my street meets with your approval.
Your street? Do you live here?
Yes, the Benedict.
What a nice-looking building. I don't think I've ever seen it before. Which are your windows?
Those with the awnings down on the top floor.
And that nice little balcony is yours, too.
Yes.
How cool it looks up there.
Come up and see. I can give you tea in no time, and you won't meet any bores.
Why not? It's too tempting. I'll take the risk.
I'm not dangerous. There's no one there, and it's just possible my servant may have put out tea things and provided some cake.
How delicious to have a place like this all to oneself. What a miserable thing it is to be a woman.
Why? Even women have been known to enjoy the privileges of a flat.
Oh, governesses and widows. But not girls. Not poor, miserable, marriageable girls.
I even know a girl who lives in a flat.
You do?
I do.
You mean Gertie Farish. But I said marriageable. And besides, she has such a horrid little place and no maid. Such queer things to eat. Her food tastes of soap because the cook does the washing. I should hate that, you know.
You shouldn't dine with her on wash days.
Well, it was horrid of me to say that of Gertie. I forgot she was your cousin. But we're so different, you know. And besides, well, she is free and I am not. If I were, I dare say I could be happy even in her flat. It must be pure bliss to arrange the furniture just as one likes. If I could only do over my aunt's drawing room, I know I should be a better woman.
Is it so very bad?
Ah, that shows how seldom you come there. Why don't you come more often?
When I do come, it's not to look at Mrs. Peniston's furniture.
Nonsense, you don't come at all. And yet we get on so well when we meet.
Well, perhaps that's the reason. I'm afraid I haven't any cream. Shall you mind a slice of lemon instead?
I shall like it better, but that's not the reason.
The reason for what?
For your never coming. I wish I could make you out. I know there are men who don't like me, and there are others who are afraid I want to marry them. But I don't think you dislike me, and you can't possibly think that I want to marry you.
Well then. Well then, perhaps that's the reason.
What?
The fact that you don't want to marry me. Perhaps I don't regard it as such a strong inducement to go and see you.
Dear Lawrence, that wasn't worthy of you. It's stupid of you to try and make love to me, and it isn't like you to be stupid. Don't you see they're gentlemen enough to say pleasant things to me? What I want is a friend who won't be afraid to say disagreeable ones when I need them. Sometimes I fancied you might be that friend.
Why me?
Well, I don't know why. Except that you're neither a prig nor a bounder. Shouldn't have to pretend with you or be on my guard against you. You don't know how much I need such a friend. My best friends use me or abuse me, but they don't care a straw what happens to me. I've been about too long. People are getting tired of me. They say I ought to marry.
Well, why don't you?
I see you are a friend after all. That was one of the disagreeable ones I was asking for.
It wasn't meant to be disagreeable. Isn't marriage your vocation? Isn't it what you're all brought up for?
I suppose so. What else is there?
Exactly. So why not take the plunge and have it over?
You speak as though I ought to marry the first man who came along.
I didn't mean to imply that you're as hard put to it as that. But there must be someone with the requisite qualifications.
You know that I am horribly poor and very expensive. I must have a great deal of money.
But surely you will inherit your aunt's fortune.
I have been led to believe so, but I can't bank on it.
What's become of Dilworth?
His mother was afraid that I should have all the family jewels reset, and she wanted me to promise that I wouldn't do over the drawing room.
Oh, the very reason you are marrying for.
Exactly. So she packed him off to India.
Hard luck. But you can do better than Dilworth.
Have I time? Just a whisper. You collect, don't you? You know about first editions and things?
As much as a man may who has no money to spend. Now and then I go around with big sales and I pick up something off the rubbish heap.
An Americana? Do you collect Americana?
No, that's rather out of my line. I'm not really a collector, you see. I simply like to have good editions of the books that I'm fond of.
An Americana must be horribly dull, I suppose.
I should fancy so. Though I don't suppose buyers of Americana ever sat up all night reading them. Old Percy Grice's uncle, old Jefferson Grice, certainly didn't.
Is it true that his collection of Americana is considered the most valuable in the world?
I believe so.
How did he make his fortune?
Out of the cooling device that excludes the fresh air from hotels.
If you were a collector of Americana, what particular things would you want to buy?
Oh, I don't know. News sheets printed in the 17th century, rare first editions, Benjamin Franklin's letters, private diaries, things like that.
What do you suppose would be the most valuable item to own?
Probably Columbus's letter on his first voyage, but why all this interest in Americana? Are you thinking of becoming a collector?
No. No, just curious. Don't you ever mind not being rich enough to buy all the books that you want?
Don't I just? You take me for a saint on a pillar.
And having to work, do you mind that?
Actually, I'm rather fond of the law.
Being tied down, the routine. Don't you ever want to get away?
Horribly. Especially when I see all of my friends rushing off to ocean liners.
But you don't mind enough to marry to get out of it?
God forbid.
There's the difference. A girl must a man may if he chooses. Your coat's a little shabby. But who cares? It doesn't stop people from asking you to dine. If I was shabby, no one would have me. Who wants a dingy woman? We're expected to be pretty and well-dressed till we drop, and if we can't keep it up alone, then we have to go into partnership.
Well, perhaps you'll meet your fate tonight at the Trenner's house.
I thought you might be going.
Judy Trenner asked me, but those big parties bore me.
So they do meet?
Well, then why go?
It's part of the business, you forget. And besides, if I didn't, I should be playing bezique with my aunt in Richfield Springs.
Oh, that's almost as bad as marrying Dilworth.
Oh, dear me, I must be off. It's past 5. It's been delightful. Now you shall have to return my visit.
But don't you want me to see you to the station?
No. Goodbye here, please, Lawrence.
Goodbye then, Lily. And good luck at Belmont. Would you like a... No! I'm fine. Thank you.
I don't wonder you're upset, Selden. You, of all people, could have saved her from this. I bumped into her, you know, leaving the Benedict on her way to a Belmont house party in the days before I was invited there, of course. I saw her leaving your flat.
And I'm sure you kept that information entirely to yourself.
I'm not saying I'm blameless, but that wasn't the only thing I saw.
What are you talking about?
Mrs. Haffen. Oh, you remember her, Selden? The charwoman who used to clean your rooms? She was scrubbing the stairs when Lily left your flat. I recall that Lily had to gather up her skirts to get by her.
Could one never do the simplest, the most harmless thing, without subjecting oneself to some odious conjecture? I thought I had escaped her gaze when...
Just when Lily reached the bottom stair, Mrs. Haffen called out to her. Lily stopped. Mrs. Haffen pulled out from her pockets a bundle of letters. It looked as if they had been torn in half and put back together. Well, after quite a discussion, I saw Lily reach in her purse and give Mrs. Haffen a handful of dollar bills.
Mrs. Haffen supposed me to be the writer of the letters. She was trying to blackmail me. They were addressed to you, Lawrence, and Bertha Dorset's large, disjointed hand. I thought your affair was over. Judging from the pleading nature of the contents, for you it was. The momentary triumph I felt at having some power over you, Bertha, gave way to a feeling of contamination and disgust. I had no idea what I was going to do with the letters, only that I must get them away from Mrs. Haffen, who is threatening to take me to the news.
Miss Bart, well, of all people, this is luck.
Mr. Rosedale, how are you?
Been up to town for a bit of shopping, I suppose?
Yes. I came up to see my dressmaker. I'm just on my way to catch the train to the Trenners. I'm in a great hurry.
Your dressmaker, I see. I didn't know there were any dressmakers in the Benedict.
The Benedict. Is that the name of this building?
Yes, that's the name. I believe it's an old word for bachelor, isn't it? I happen to own the building, that's how I know. But you must let me take you to the station. The Trenners are at Belmont, of course. Barely time to catch the 5:40. The dressmaker kept you waiting, I suppose.
Thank you, you're very kind, but I couldn't think of troubling you.
If I'd known we were going to have to wait this long, I would have brought some cards with me.
Perhaps you should try reading some poetry instead.
Now, Joe, if I don't get to Celeste before Maria von Osborne, she'll pick all the best designs.
Oh, do stop fussing, Judy. Don't you ever think about anything except spending my money? The 9:45 train to Rhinebeck is leaving from track 3 in 4 minutes. For passengers for this train, please board now.
Right! I met you on that train with Lily going to Belmont.
I shall never forget it, Mrs. Dorset. Reynolds Mason.
Oh, Mr. Grimstone! trying to fight with the porters with my tea. Are you by any chance going to Belmont?
Yes, I am. I heard you were to be one of the party. I am invited for the whole week.
How delightful. The chair across from yours is empty. May I take it? I met your mother the other day at my aunt's.
Oh, yes.
She's having trouble with servants again, I believe.
Yes.
Kitchen maid smuggling groceries out of the house.
Yes.
You don't smoke, Mr. Grice.
No, Miss Marks. I would never allow tobacco to pollute my biz.
And how are you getting on with your Americano?
You know about my passion? Well, I've acquired a few new things.
Oh, do tell me about them.
Well, my most recent purchase is a beautiful first edition of Emerson's essays.
How clever of you to find that.
Yes. And the exciting thing is it's an autographed copy.
Well, I never. I suppose you collect 17th century news sheets, diaries and such like.
Yes. Oh, you must let me show you my private library someday.
Have you ever seen Columbus's letter on his first voyage?
Oh, yes. To be sure. The Columbus letter is the first of all Americana. It's one of the treasures of the New York Public Library. I spend hours there every week. They also have a copy of the first Latin edition, printed in Basel.
Mr. Grouse, you're so knowledgeable.
Another of the finest collections of Americana, apart from my own, of course, is in the John Carter Brown Library in Providence.
I suppose you know about the collections in all the libraries.
Oh, yes. The Newberry Library in Chicago, and the Huntington in San Marino. And then there's the Clemens Library in Ann Arbor.
Ah! Lily! Are you going to Belmont? I must have a seat in this carriage. Porter! You must find me a place at once. Can't someone be put somewhere else? I want to be with my friends. Oh, how do you do, Mr. Grice? Do please make him understand that I must have a seat next to you and Lily. I came across from Mount Kisco this morning in my motor car. I've been kicking my heels for an hour at Garrison's without even a cigarette. That stupid George forgot to replenish my case this morning. Oh, and I don't suppose at this hour of the day you've a single one left, have you, Lily?
What an absurd question, Bertha.
Why? You smoke, don't you? Since when have you given it up?
Oh, clever.
You never! And you don't either, Mr. Grice? Ah, of course. How silly of me. I understand.
Stop. You're making a spectacle of yourself.
I can't help it. I suddenly saw how ridiculous we all look. Dressed in black like a lot of crows. We should be going to one of your house parties, Judy, not Lily Bart's funeral.
Craig has just telephoned to say she's not coming in for a few days. Her sister's having a baby. As if that were anything to having a house party. It's simply inhuman of her to go off now. Lily, if it's not a bore, will you come and help me? Oh, there are all the dinner cards to write and addresses to hunt up. When I was down in Tuxedo, I asked a lot of people for next week, and I've mislaid the list. I can't remember who's staying on this week and how many I've invited to come on Thursday. It really is too tiresome. I know this week is going to be a horrid failure, too. And Gwen Von Osberg will go back and tell her mother how bored people were.
Judy, as if anyone were ever bored at Belmont.
Now, dear, let's get started. I know the Wetheralls are staying until next Friday. That was a blunder of Gus's. They can stay in the Peacock room.
What was Gus's blunder?
Well, they disapprove of Carrie Fisher. It was foolish of her to get the second divorce. Carrie always always overdoes things. But she's the only person who can keep Gus in good humor when we have bores in the house. And even though I know she borrows money from Gus, I pay her to do that. Oh, I've just remembered. I've invited Audrey Ansdell. She's staying with the Dick Bellingers, and they asked if they could bring her. Such a mousy little creature, but she plays a formidable game of bridge.
Well, she can have my room then, and the Bellingers can go in the Oriental room. Carrie borrows money from Gus.
Yes. It's rather clever of her to have made a specialty of devoting herself to dull people. And quite lucrative, too. Oh, Gwen and Evie von Osberg are staying on for a few days. Gwen and Jack Stepney are getting on so well. I shouldn't be surprised if they announce their engagement soon. Where have we got to?
The Wetheralls, the Van Osberg girls, and Jack are all staying on, and so far we have Audrey Ansdell, and the Bellingers are riding on Thursday. When is Lady Cressida racing here?
Oh, my dear, if only one knew. I was in such a hurry to get her away from Maria von Osberg that I actually forgot to name a date. If I'd known what she was like, they could have had her and welcome.
Hadn't you known her before?
Oh, mercy, no. Never saw her till yesterday. She's the Duchess of Belcher's sister, and I naturally suppose she was the same sort. But you never can tell in those English families.
Which room is she in?
The garden room. I thought it would remind her of home. I know there's someone else. Oh, give me a cigarette, dear, and perhaps it'll come to me. I'm sorry, dear, to keep you from the dancing. By the way, Bertha will be furious with me.
Furious with you? Why?
Because I told her Lawrence Eldon was coming, and he isn't after all, and she'll think it's all my fault.
I thought it was all over between them.
So it is, on his side. I suppose she'll take it out on me by being perfectly nasty to everyone else.
Or she may tag it out on him by being perfectly charming to someone else.
Oh, she knows he wouldn't mind. And besides, who else is there? Ned Silverton's too young, Gus is bored by her, Jack Stepney knows her too well, and, well, there's Percy Grice.
She wouldn't be likely to hit it off with him.
I hope she won't be nice to him, because I've invited him here on purpose for you.
Merci de compliment. I shall certainly have no show against Bertha.
Oh, everyone knows you're 1,000 times handsomer and cleverer than Bertha. But then you're not nasty.
I thought you were so fond of Bertha.
Oh, I am. Much safer to be fond of dangerous people. And she is dangerous. If ever I saw her up to mischief, it is now. I can tell by poor George's manner. He always knows when Bertha's about
To fall.
Don't be shocking. Do you know, he believes in her still, only she delights in making people miserable, especially poor George.
Well, he seems cut out for the part. I don't wonder she likes more cheerful companionship.
George is not as dismal as you think. If Bertha would leave him alone, he'd be quite different. Only she doesn't dare lose her hold on him on account of the money. And so, when he isn't jealous, she pretends to be. Oh, I've just remembered who I've invited. The Ned Wintons. Both of them on their second marriages, you know.
Where would you like me to put them?
I guess you better put them in the Japanese room. It has the best view of the lake. Do you know, I believe I will telephone Lawrence and tell him he simply must come.
Don't.
Good gracious, Lily, you're blushing. Why? Do you dislike him so much?
Not at all. I like him. But I don't think I need to be protected from Bertha.
Lily. Percy? Do you mean to say you've actually done it?
I only mean to say that Mr. Grice and I are going to be good friends.
Do you know, they say he has $800,000 a year and spends nothing except on rubbishy old books. Oh, Lily, do go slowly.
I shouldn't be in haste to tell me a lot of rubbishly old books.
No, of course not. I know you're wonderful at getting up people's subjects. But he's horribly shy and easily shocked and...
Why did you say it, Judy? I have the reputation of being on the hunt for a rich husband.
No, I don't mean that. Oh, but don't wear your scarlet crop to sheet, and don't smoke if you can help it.
I shall lock up my cigarettes. morning. Perhaps you'll be kind enough not to ask me to play bridge or roulette again.
Oh, Lily, does he mind gambling too? Oh, what an awful life you'll lead. But of course I won't. Well, why didn't you tell me? There's nothing I wouldn't do to see you happy. Where is Percy anyway? Is he dancing with the others?
He said he was going to have an early night. We've arranged to go to church together in the morning.
Oh, I see. You're quite sure you wouldn't like me to telephone for Lauren Sullivan?
Quite sure.
Come along, ladies and gentlemen. Faites bonjour.
Lily, come and have one last game of roulette while Percy's out of the way.
What charity is the bank going to tonight, Judy?
Freddie Farrage's Girls Club.
Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen.
Are you not playing, Gary?
No, I lost too much at bridge earlier. I'll be the bank. By the way, where are Jack and Gwen? Last seen holding hands in the conservatory. When are they announcing their engagement?
Very soon now, I gather. Gwen wants to get married in November.
And of course, Jack will have Simon Rosedale as his best man.
Jove, that's an idea. What a thumping present I'll get out of him.
Gus, place these chips on 36 for me, will you? You might bring me luck.
I must remember to thank Jack for introducing me to Simon Rosedale. I did a very neat stroke of business yesterday with his help. I wish I could persuade Judy to ask him to Bellamont. He's going to be rich enough to buy us all out one of these days. No more bets. She objects to him because he's Jewish, you know. He's been rejected a dozen times by the social board, and she won't hear of even being civil to him. Rien ne va plus. Say
You are the luck of the devil, Judy.
you won't need my money at this rate. Faites bonjour, ladies and gentlemen. You know, if Judy would only ask Rosedale to Bellamont to dine now and then, I could get almost anything out of it. In a few years, he'll be in whether we want him or not. And then he won't be giving away $500,000 tip for a dinner.
No, he won't. And who can blame him?
I thought Ned was coming to play. I suppose he's got his head stuck in a poetry book. Je fais ce mot sérébitrant et pénétrant d'une femme inconnue et qui j'aime et qui m'aime et qui n'est chaque soir tout à fait le même, ni tout à fait au autre, et même au contraire.
Very impressive, girl. I didn't know you liked poetry, let alone French poetry.
Because you don't know either.
Place your bets. He'll be wanting to show you his sonnets next.
If he writes poetry, I shall certainly.
Rien ne va plus. Système noir. This is getting embarrassing. People will think we fixed the wheel.
Oh, never mind, Lily. Better luck next time.
My wife is making a fool of herself with Ned Silverton. Well, I really suppose she's gone, no? And I assure you, it's the other way around entirely.
Aren't you going to be jealous of her?
Well, abominably. You've just hit it. Keeps me up at night. Doctor says it's not my digestion now. Well, that and the new chefs. I don't understand why everything has to be swimming in sauce nowadays. I always scrape it off. And everything is served with melted butter. Do you know how toxic melted butter is? I dread these house parties. Chefs are always so inferior to ours, and I end up getting chronic dyspepsia.
A little less chat, ladies and gentlemen. No more bets.
Did Lily tell you I met her on the train with Percy Grice?
Yes, she did mention it.
Well, when I asked her for a cigarette, she pretended she didn't smoke.
Here, Lily, take these and have one more go.
My dear, where did you find Lady Cressida Ray?
Oh, you may well ask.
Place these on rouge for me, Gus, dear.
I never met her before. Serves me right, though.
Why?
I thought she was supposed to be staying with the Van Osbergs, and I thought it would be fun to get her away.
Well, she's married to a clergyman who does missionary work in the East End of London.
How can you be bothered with a clergyman's wife who wears Indian jewelry and botanizes?
She made Gus take her over the glass houses yesterday and bothered him to death, asking him the names of the plants.
Fancy treating Gus as if he were a gardener. When is she leaving?
She intends to stop here all winter.
In this house?
Don't be silly, in America. If no one else asks her. You know, the English never go to hotels. Rien de plus.
She would have been so useful last year when we had the bishop here.
Oh yes, that's when I forgot he was here and brought back the dead Wittens and the Farley. 5 divorces and 6 sets of children between them. 13 back.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I think perhaps we should call it a day. It's after midnight, and I wouldn't want our other guests to think we gamble on Sundays. Poor Billy, you're not having much luck lately, are you? Here, change my chips for me, will you?
I'll settle with you tomorrow.
You see, I came after all.
Lawrence, how lovely.
Why didn't you telephone me? I would have sent the truck for you.
I was just on my way to bed, so I'll say good night.
Take a walk with me in the morning.
I have another engagement. Perhaps in the afternoon. Good night.
I must return to New York in the afternoon.
So soon. I'll see you. Good night. The world that night seemed a miserable place. I lingered, looking around the hall where the last of you were gathered. There were moments when such scenes delighted me and gratified my sense of beauty. But that night they gave a sharper edge to the meagerness of my own opportunities. Surely there was room for me in your crowded, selfish room of pleasure. I had almost landed you, Percy. She was so boring. You had bored me all afternoon. Did I really want you to do me the honor of boring me for life? But what choice did I have? To be myself. Or like you, Gertie. So I entered my bedroom with its softly shaded lights, the fire burning in the hearth, a vase of carnation filling the air with perfume. I had a vision of your cramped flat, Gertie, with its cheap conveniences and hideous wallpapers. I wasn't made for mean and shabby surroundings. I needed luxury. It was the only atmosphere I could breathe in. But I was getting out of my depth. The gambling passion had been upon me that night. My luck seemed to have deserted me, and I lost $300. When I went through my accounts, I realized that my finances were in worse shape than I had imagined. Only $20 left. For a moment I thought I'd been robbed. I went through the figures again and again, but nothing would conjure back the $300. It reminded me of the terrible day my world crashed. I was having luncheon with my mother. I really think, Mother, we could afford a few fresh flowers for luncheon. Just some jonquils or lilies of the valley.
Lilies of the valley cost $2 a dozen at this season.
It would not take more than 6 dozen to fill that bowl.
6 dozen what?
I was only saying, Father, that I hate to see faded flowers at luncheon. And Mother says that a bunch of lilies of the valley would not cost more than $12. Mayn't I tell the florist to send a few every day?
$12 a day for flowers? Oh, certainly, my dear. Give him an order for 1,200.
What's the matter, Hudson? Are you ill?
You? No. I'm ruined.
Your father is not well. He doesn't know what he is saying. It is nothing, but you'd better go upstairs and don't talk to the servants. You are sorry for him now, but you will feel differently when you see what he has done to us. Don't let dinginess creep up on you and drag you down. Fight your way out somehow. You're young, and you can do it.
My mother's words were ringing in my ears. You'll get the money back. You'll get it all back with your face. My My beauty was all that I had, and it was fading away. I returned wearily to the thought of you, Percy. A few more days' work, and I would win my reward. I would have smarter dresses than you, Judy, and far more jewels than you were. Instead of having to flatter, I would be flattered. Instead of being grateful, I would receive thanks. I would be free forever from the humiliation of being poor. But in return, what a price I would have to pay. Church every Sunday with you, Percy. We would have a front pew in the most expensive church in New York, and your name would figure handsomely on the list of parish charities. In a few years, when you grew stouter, you would be made a warden. Once a year, the rector would come to dine, and he would make me go over the list to make sure that no divorcees were included, except, of course, those who had shown penitence by being married to the very wealthy. At the very least, being married to you would have been refuge from worry. Nothing more. Much to my surprise, I slept well that night, and there was no trace of the lines I had seen around my face. I had every intention of going to church with you, Percy, but I lingered too long in my thoughts. Thoughts of you, Lawrence. Why had you come to Bellamont after all? Was it to see me? Or Bertha Dorsey? It was a beautiful day. A day for impulse and truancy. Every drop of blood in my veins invited me to happiness.
You never answer my letter, Lawrence. But I forgive you. Now you've come to Bellamont after all. I presume you did come to see me.
Dear me. Am I late?
Late for what? Not for luncheon, certainly, but perhaps you have an earlier engagement.
Yes, I had.
Really? Oh, perhaps I am in the way for him. But Mr. Selden is entirely at your disposal.
Oh dear, no, do stay. I don't in the least want to drive you away.
How nice of you, dear. But I never interfere with Mr. Selden's engagement.
Oh, I have no engagement with Mr. Selden. My engagement was to go to church. But I'm afraid the omnibus has started without me. Has it started? Do you know?
I heard it leave quite a while ago.
And I shall have to walk. I promised the Trenner girls I would go to church with them. At least I shall have the credit of trying. The advantage of escaping part of the circle.
Oh, no, I apologize.
How fast you walk. I thought I should never catch up with you.
You must be quite breathless. I've been sitting here for an hour.
Waiting for me, I hope?
Well, waiting to see if you'd come.
Oh, I didn't know you read poetry. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam.
I always carry it with me. It was my father's.
But weren't you sure that I would come?
If I waited long enough. But you see, I only had a limited time to give the experiment.
Why limited? Limited by luncheon?
No, limited by my other engagement.
Oh, your engagement to go to church with the Trenner girls.
But to come home from church with another person.
Percy Grass, you mean?
How did you guess?
By putting two and two together. Now I see why you were getting up your Americana.
That's why I was waiting for you, to thank you for having given me so many points. But why did you change your mind and come to Bellamont after all?
To see you.
Did you really come to see me?
Of course I did.
Why?
Because you're such a wonderful spectacle. I always like to see what you are doing.
How do you know what I should be doing if you were not here?
I don't flatter myself that my coming has deflected your course of action by a hair's breadth.
That's absurd, since if you were not here, I could obviously not be taking a walk with you.
No, but your taking a walk with me is just another way of making use of your material. You are an artist, and I happen to be a bit of color that you are using today. It's part of your cleverness to be able to produce premeditated effects extemporaneously.
I don't know why you're always accusing me of premeditation.
I thought you confessed to it. You told me the other day that you had to follow a certain line.
You must find me a dismal kind of person if you think that I ever yield to an impulse.
But I don't suppose that. Haven't I told you that your genius lies in converting impulses into intentions?
Is there any final test of genius besides success? And I certainly haven't succeeded.
Success. What is success? I should be interested to have your definition.
To get as much as one can out of life, I suppose. Isn't that your idea of it?
My idea of it? God forbid. My idea of success is personal freedom.
Freedom. Freedom from worries.
Freedom from everything. Freedom from money, from poverty, from ease and anxiety, from all the material accidents. To keep a kind of republic of the spirit. That's what I call success.
I know. I know, it's what I've been feeling today.
Is the feeling so rare with you?
You find me horribly sordid, don't you? But you see, there was no one to tell me of the Republic of Spirit.
There never is. It is a country one has to find a way to one's self.
But I should never have found my way there if you hadn't told me.
There are signposts, but one has to know how to read them.
Well, I have known. I have known whenever I see you, I find myself spelling out a letter of the sign.
Are you going to become one of us?
Oh, do give me one. I haven't smoked for hours.
Why such unnatural abstinence? Everybody smokes at Bellamont.
It is not considered becoming in a jeune fille mariée. And at the moment, I am a jeune fille mariée.
Ah, well, I'm afraid we can't let you into that republic. You will marry someone very rich, and it's as hard for rich people to get into as the kingdom of heaven.
Well, that's unjust. Since, as I understand it, one of the conditions of citizenship is not to think too much about money. The only way not to think about money is to have a great deal of it.
You might as well say that the only way not to think about air is not to breathe. And so it is with your rich people. They may not be thinking of money, but they are breathing it all the while. Take them into another element and see how they squirm and gasp.
It seems to me that you spend a great deal of time in the element you disapprove of.
Good heavens, I don't underrate the decorative side of my life, but I try to remain amphibious. It's all right as long as lungs work in another air. The real alchemy is being able to turn gold back again into something else. That's the secret that most of your friends have forgotten.
Why do you call your republic a republic? It is a closed corporation.
It is not my republic. If it were, I should have a coup d'etat and seat you on the throne.
Whereas in reality, you think I can never even get my foot across the threshold. You despise my ambitions. You think them unworthy of me.
Well, isn't that a tribute? I think them quite worthy of most of the people who live by them.
But if you think they are what I should really enjoy, then you must find my ambitions good enough for me.
Oh, my dear Miss Bart. I am not divine providence to guarantee you're enjoying the things that you were trying to get.
Then the best you can say for me is that after struggling to get them, I shan't like them. What a miserable future you foresee for me.
Have you never foreseen it for yourself?
Well, often, but it looks so much darker when you show it to me. Why do you do this to me? Why do you make the things I have chosen seem hateful to me if you have nothing to give me instead?
No. I have nothing to give you instead. If I did, it should be yours, you know. Isn't it natural that I would try to belittle all of the things that I can't offer you?
But you belittle me, don't you? In being so sure they are the only things I care for.
But you do care for them, don't you? No wishing of mine can alter that.
For all your fine phrases, you're really as great a coward as I am. For you would not have made one of them if you hadn't been so sure of my answer.
I am not so sure of your answer, and I do you the justice to believe that you are not so either.
Do you want to marry me?
No. I don't want to. But perhaps I should if you did.
That's what I told you. You're so sure of me that you can amuse yourself with experiments.
I'm not making experiments. Or if I am, they're not on you, but on myself. I don't know what effect they will have on me, but if marrying you is one of them, I will certainly take the risk.
It would be a great risk, certainly. I've never concealed from you how great.
Ah. It is you who are the coward.
I should look hideous in dowdy clothes. But I can trim my own house. I had no idea it was so late. And I've missed my appointment with Percy Gray. We shan't be back in time for luncheon. Let us go. Were you serious?
Why not? You see, I took no risks in being so. Come on. I have a train to catch.
When I think of what we've all done for Lily, I feel quite angry with her. The lengths I went to get her together with
You
Percy.
never understood her. None of you. If you had, she wouldn't be lying in her coffin.
Never understood her. How dare you say that? I did everything I could for her. We all did. Everybody played fair.
Trouble with Lily is that she worked like a slave, preparing the ground and sowing her seed, but the day she ought to have been reaping her harvest, she overslept, went off on a picnic.
Exactly. That was Lily all over. Why she behaved as though she had just discovered you, Lawrence, is beyond me. I warned her not to make an enemy of Bertha. I knew Bertha would poison Percy against her, give it half a chance.
I don't know what you mean. It was my duty to tell Percy what he was letting himself in for. Wasn't it, Percy?
Yes, Mrs. Dorset, I was most grateful to you for that.
You were grateful to be told a lot of lies? Or half-truths?
But they weren't lies. I was already upset to find out Miss Bart gambled. You know, I had never seen a girl play cards for money before. Very shocking. And then Miss Dorset told me about some Italian prince and some English aristocrat Miss Bart had been involved with.
Oh, and no doubt she told you about her borrowing money from Ned Van Alstyne to pay her gambling debts.
Yes, she did mention it.
Carrie told me about that, didn't you, Carrie? I really can't remember. It's so long ago.
But Ned Van Alstyne was a cousin of Lily's, and I happen to know she paid him back.
I don't suppose, Bertha, you remembered to tell Percy that part of the story. Anyway, you knew your man. You knew just what to say to frighten him off.
I do wish you would not talk about me as though I were here! I was dazzled by Miss Bart. I don't deny it. But she broke all of her promises to me. It was very disappointing. And she knew so much about Americana. I really thought that... Well, my mother warned me about such girls.
Such girls! She was worth more than all of you put together. Her only crime was to try to live as one of you, but she never had any money.
Why such a worried look?
Oh, Gus, I'm so glad you're here. Judy is angry with me, and I want you to make my peace.
Oh, come now, that's nonsense. You know she's devoted to you.
She has set her heart on my marrying a great deal of money.
You don't mean Grice.
Yes.
Good Lord. Grice? Did Judy really think you could bring yourself to marry that portentous little ass?
Gus, I know you understand me.
You bet I do. I could have told Judy you'd never put up with that milksop. Take my advice, Lily. Stay just as you are till the right man comes along.
If only I could. But you see, Judy's right. I must marry.
Must marry? Why?
I am in debt. I can't afford to go on living as all the women in my set do. My aunt gives me a small allowance, but I've lost money gambling lately. I daren't tell her I have a pile of unpaid bills in my room.
Oh, well, it's confoundedly mean of your aunt to keep you so close.
She doesn't know how things have changed. I shall have to give up my way of life. There's nothing else I can do.
Have you no income of your own?
Tiny one. I wish I had someone like you to advise me on how to invest. It seems to bring in less every year. But I know so little of money matters. Oh, I didn't mean to bore you with all this, but I want you to explain to Judy why I can't stay on any longer or be a part of her set anymore.
Look here, Lily. Would you let me do a turn for you?
A turn? What's that?
Pull off a little cash for you.
Oh, Gus.
Trust me, Lily. I know what I'm doing.
Gus,
I can make things all right for
you're
you.
so good to me.
I don't want to see any more little worry lines on your face. Now, pull out your purse. Oh, don't look so startled. This is a little advance.
No, I can't.
It's a load, Lily, on your first dividend.
You're sure I can pay you back?
I'm sure. But not a word of this to anyone, not even Judy. You understand. If a deal of this kind gets talked about, it usually falls through to a successful partnership.
Was it true that Lily borrowed money from Gus?
I don't think under the circumstances you're in a position to ask such a question.
What do you mean?
Is it true that George asked Lily to marry him?
Of course not! What on earth gave you that idea?
You see, you shouldn't listen to gossip.
Oh, I couldn't risk eating here. I might be poisoned.
Indeed, you might, dear. Do you remember Jack and Gwen's wedding reception? Mousse of lobster with champagne sauce.
Please don't remind me.
I wouldn't have missed their wedding for anything. It was beautifully done. I had never seen Lily looking so lovely. Do you remember, Lawrence?
Stunner was the word I used.
What are you talking about, Gus?
Lily, she looked a stunner. There was no one at that wedding to touch her.
She was wearing the latest creation of the dressmaker she went to see at the Benedict.
I didn't know there were any dressmakers at the Benedict.
I remember the diamond pendant you gave them, Mr. Rosedale. It was as big as a dinner plate. And the exquisite white sapphire from you, Mr. Grice.
That was the day you announced your own engagement, wasn't it, Percy?
I ran in for a minute to tell Mrs. Peniston about the wedding. She nearly fainted when I told her they served melons before the consommé.
I didn't care much for the bridesmaids' dresses. They certainly didn't look the $300 a piece they were supposed to have cost.
I must say I was glad Lily decided not to be a bridesmaid. That shade of salmon pink wouldn't have suited her. That wasn't the only reason. The truth was, she had attended too many brides to the altar.
Mrs. Peniston wanted to know everything. Whether the old Van Osburgh Sevres was used at the bride's table, what color Mrs. Van Osburgh's gown was, what everyone was wearing. She had been told you were the best dressed person there, Mrs. Dorset.
No, I've no doubt your dress did cost more than anyone else's.
I went to that new man in Paris. I had to spend a day with him at his villa in Neuilly before he would take my order. I've never seen you looking so well. You were in tremendous spirits that day.
Of course you were. You made the match between Evie and Percy and got your revenge on Lily. Mind you, Maria von Osburgh was in seventh heaven. She'd almost despaired of marrying Evie in spite of her fortune.
I hope you're not suggesting that I married Evie for her money. I have my own
Ignore
money.
them, Percy. It's just women's talk. By the way, Rosedale, you promised me more information on the Ridnour deal. My luck has not been so great lately, and I could do with a good turn.
Ask Willie Bry, why don't you? He can't seem to put a foot wrong at the moment.
I will never get used to the Wellington Bry's meteoric rise in society.
You are such a snob, Judy. Don't forget they had the benefit of my guidance and expertise.
Well, that doesn't alter the fact that Louisa Bry's background is somewhat obscure. You get paid for your guidance and expertise, but my life is too busy to spend valuable time breaking in new people.
You must admit, though, she does things well. I remember telling her that a good cook was the best introduction to society.
That and buying a house on Fifth Avenue.
The cross between an Italian pleasure hall and the Trianon, you mean?
Yes. That's exactly how my mother describes it. Oh, she misses her visits with Mrs. Peniston. That's how she kept up with all the gossip. Mrs. Peniston knew everything that was going on.
I remember sitting with her once. She was peering through her binoculars, keeping up a running commentary. There's the Van Osburgh carriage on the way to the opera. Grace tells me their last ball was exceedingly dull. Not that she was invited, of course, but she hears all the gossip and passes it on to me.
Talking of gossip, Simon Rosedale has doubled his money, you know. Only he and Welly Bry seem to have found the secret of making money on Wall Street last winter, when everyone else was losing theirs.
How else could he have bought the Grunner's house on Fifth Avenue?
And everything else that goes with it.
Miss Lily, will you let me take you to the opening night of the opera season? I have my own box, you know. Mrs. Fisher and the Dorsets will be there. And I've secured a tremendous admirer of yours who'll never forgive me if you don't accept. Gus Trenner has come to town on purpose. I fancy you go a great deal farther for the pleasure of seeing you.
The Trenners and I are best friends. I think we should all go a long way to see each other.
Ah, well, I wasn't thinking of Mrs. Trenner at the moment. They say Gus doesn't always, you know. By the way, how are things going for you on Wall Street? I hear Gus pulled off a nice little pile for you last month.
I had a little bit of money to invest in. Mr. Trenner advised by putting in stocks instead of mortgage. I had a lucky turn, as you call it. You make a great man of yourself, I believe.
Look here, Lily, I've laid eyes on you for the last month. How's the fellow ever to see anything of you? You know, I'm in town 3 or 4 days a week. You don't seem to remember my existence unless you want a tip out of me. Why don't we go off somewhere on a little lark together? Plain English of it is, now that you've got what you want out of me, you'd rather have any other fellow about.
Don't be foolish, guys. I can't have you talking to me in this ridiculous way. If you really want to see me, why shouldn't we go for a walk in the park one afternoon?
All right, then. That's a go.
I wish Gus would draw the curtains when he leaves the box. Drafts are damnable. Well, here we are, Lily. In for another 6 months of operatic caterwauling. Bertha puts me through a course of this every winter. On Italian nights, it isn't so bad. Then she comes late and I have time to digest. But when they play Wagner, we rush dinner and I pay up for it. Lily, Bertha wants you to come down to our place next Sunday. That silly-ass Silverton is having a bunch of intellectual bores with him. Bertha in here getting tremendously thick. Do for heaven's sake say yes. For my sake.
George, I'd love to. What an exciting week it'll be. You're coming to the Welly Bry's, aren't you?
Mr. and Mrs. Wellington Bry request the pleasure
Pleasure of your company at Tableau Vivant on Wednesday, Thursday, December 3rd, 1903 at 5 p.m. Followed by
buffet supper.
I remember suggesting that. Tableau
and expensive music were the most likely baits to attract the desired prey.
You made quite a coup persuading all those fashionable women to display themselves. And Paul Morpeth's organizing. It was he who suggested I portray Titian's daughter. Do you remember?
How could I forget? And I was...
Dona Isabel de Porcel, Francisco de Goya.
How splendid Miss Smedden from Brooklyn looked. She showed the sumptuous curves to perfection.
I preferred Miss Van Alstyne's frailer Dutch type.
Wasn't it dear of Lily to get me that invitation? Of course, it never would have occurred to you, Carrie, to put me on the list. And I should have been so sorry to miss seeing it all. That ballroom, someone told me the ceiling was by Veronese. You would know, of course, Lawrence. I suppose it was very beautiful, but his women were so dreadfully fat.
They were goddesses, Gertie.
I can only say that if they'd been mortals and had to wear corsets, it would have been much better for them. I think our women are much handsomer. Did you ever see such jewels? Lily wouldn't tell me what she was appearing as. She said it was a secret. Oh, Lawrence, I'm so excited.
How much longer do we have to wait for Miss Bach to appear?
Only a little while longer, then we can all go to supper.
Staying for supper, Gus?
Well, not if I know it. When people crowd their rooms so you can't get near anyone you want to speak to, I'd as soon sup in the elevator in the rush hour. My wife was dead right to stay away. Life is too short to spend it breaking in new people.
Ladies and gentlemen,
We now come to the last of the tableau.
Miss Lily Bart.
God, what a show of good-looking women. Not one of them could touch Lily, though. I never knew until that night what an outline she had. There wasn't a break in the lines anyway.
Suppose she wanted us to know it, too. It was a deuced bold thing to show herself in that outfit.
Damn bad taste, in my opinion.
How clever of her to select Joshua Reynolds' Mrs. Lloyd. Oh, it's as though she had stepped into the painting, not out of it. She embodied Mrs. Lloyd without ceasing to be herself. If I could have got Paul Morpeth to paint her like that, the picture would have appreciated 100% in 10 years.
Wasn't she too beautiful, Lawrence? Didn't you like her best in that simple dress? It reminded me of the real Lily, the Lily I knew.
The Lily we knew.
You never speak to me. You think hard things of me.
I think of you at any rate, God knows.
Then why do we never see each other? We haven't been alone since that morning at Bellamont. I have never recovered my self-respect since you showed me how poor and important my ambitions were.
I thought, on the contrary, I had been the means of proving that they were more important to you than anything else.
Why can't we be friends? You promised once to help me.
The only way I can help you is by loving you.
Love me. Love me. But don't tell me so.
When may I see you again?
Tomorrow. At 4.
Tomorrow.
Why are you looking at me like that, Selden?
Smoke their cigarettes. And use their carriages and their opera boxes and their private cars, yes. But there is a price to pay on every one of those luxuries. The man pays it by big tips to the servants, by playing cards beyond his means, and by flowers and presents and lots of other things that cost. The girl pays it by tips and cards too. Had to take up bridge again. Going to the best dressmakers, having just the right dress for every occasion. Always keeping yourself fresh and amusing. Doesn't sound very amusing, does it? And it isn't. I'm sick to death of it. Yet the thought of giving it all up nearly kills me. That's what keeps me up at night. Can't go on in this way much longer. I'm nearly at the end of my tether, you know. How do I go on? How do I keep myself alive? must be off. I had an appointment with Carrie Fisher to see Mrs. Hatch at the Emporium Hotel. Apparently she wants a kind of social secretary. I'm rather hard up, just for the moment. If I can find something to do, it'll tide me over till the legacy is paid. Don't have such a worried look, you dear thing. Try not to think too much about the nonsense I've been talking.
I was shocked when I found out it was you who introduced Lily to Mrs. Hatch, Carrie.
I made it quite clear to her that I myself was unacquainted with Mrs. Hatch. I was not Lily's keeper. And besides, she was old enough to look after herself.
But surely you must have been aware of that woman's shady reputation, and that the Emporium Hotel was a hotbed of vice and indolence.
You should know, Mr. Rosedale. Better than any of us. After all, you were quite a frequenter of the place once, weren't you? I only knew that she came from the West. Had been divorced more than once, but I could hardly pass judgment on that fact. And had a great deal of money. She was also helpless and unplaced, and Lily was the ideal person to introduce her to society.
I stayed at the Emporium once. It was overheated, overupholstered, and overfitted with mechanical appliances. All the comforts of civilized life was hard to come by as in a desert. I suppose your uncle's device for the exclusion of fresh air was partly to blame for the stuffiness, Percy.
Mrs. Hatch and her friends kept no definite hours, I am told. Night and day flowed into one another, a succession of hangers-on ready to the suite.
You mean like Freddie Von Osberg and Ned Silverton?
I was actually thinking more of the throng of manicurists, beauty doctors, hairdressers.
Although Mrs. Hatch's relationship to them sometimes made them indistinguishable from her other visitors, I believe. Poor Maria was distraught when she heard Freddie was so involved with Mrs. Hatch. What was he thinking of?
Well, he was completely under Ned's influence. And besides, Mrs. Hatch was very alluring. I'm told. You know Ned has never been very discriminating in his choice of women. Poor Freddie. He thought of it as a way of escaping the established social routine.
One-legged Rosedale and I were able to remove Freddie from Mrs. Hatch's clutches when we did. Another week, he'd have married her.
Oh, by Jove, Percy, you were damn near related to the woman.
I knew my instinct was right about Lily. You thought I was cruel to snub her, but I never really trusted her. And when I heard from Maria about Freddie's involvement with Mrs. Hatch, well, who else could have been behind it?
You're wrong. Lily wasn't mixed up in that affair. Wasn't her style.
Mr. Saddleton, what a surprise. I wondered that you were able to trace me here. What, may I ask, has inspired this, sir?
I wanted to see you.
You appear to have kept that desire under remarkable control.
You are to let me take you away from here.
May I ask where you mean me to go?
To Gertie, in the first place. The essential thing is that it should be away from here.
I am very much obliged to you for taking such an interest in my plans. But I am quite contented where I am and have no intention of leaving.
That simply means you don't know where you are.
If you have come here to say disagreeable things about Mrs. Hatch...
It is only with your relation to Mrs. Hatch that I am concerned.
My relation to Mrs. Hatch is one I have no reason to be ashamed of. She has helped me to earn a living, while my old friends were quite resigned to seeing me starve.
Nonsense. Starvation is not the only alternative. You know you could always find a home with Gertie till you are independent again.
You show such an intimate acquaintance with my affairs that I suppose you mean until my aunt's legacy is paid.
I do mean that. Gertie told me of it.
But Gertie does not happen to know that I owe every penny of that legacy.
Good God.
Every penny of it. And more too. And you now perhaps see why I prefer to remain with Mrs. Hatch, rather than take advantage of Gertie's kindness. I have no money left. Except my small income, and I must earn something more to keep myself alive.
But with your income and Gertie's, you and she could surely contrive a life together that would put you beyond the need of having to support yourself. Gertie, I know, is eager to make such an arrangement and would be quite happy.
But I should not. There are many reasons why I would not be kind to Gertie, nor wise for myself. You will perhaps excuse me from giving you these reasons.
claim to know them. No claim to offer any comment or suggestion beyond the one I have already made. And my right to make that is simply the universal right of a man to enlighten a woman when he sees her unconsciously placed in a false position.
I suppose that by false position you mean one outside of what we call society? But you must remember that I had been excluded from those sacred precincts long before I met Mrs. Hatch. As far as I can see, there is very little difference in being inside or out. And I remember you once telling me that it was only those inside who took the difference seriously.
Mrs. Hatch's desire to be inside may put you in a position that I call false.
I don't know why you assumed me to be situated as you describe. But as you always told me, that it was the sole object of bringing up like-minded to go to get what she wants. I'm not assuming. That is precisely what I am doing.
I am not so sure that I ever called you a successful example of that kind of bringing up.
Give me a little more time. Wait a little longer before you decide. Don't give me up. I may still do credit to my training.
I suppose we could have done more to help her, but I really had no idea.
She'd already had all she was going to get from us. She flouted our friendship. And anyway, she passed out of my milieu.
Lily got exactly what she deserved. She always had to go her own way. I knew she would come to a sticky end.
What a pity she didn't make a success of working at Madame Regina's. After all the trouble I went to, too. She should have taken my advice and worked in the showroom modeling hats instead of insisting on trying to make them.
Sewing on spangles was obviously not her forte.
If you had helped her, she wouldn't have had to sew on spangles. You could have set her up in her own hat shop, Mrs. Trenner.
Lily owning a hat shop.
She was never really one of our set anyway.
No. No one in our set would live in a boarding house, in a neighborhood where the garbage was left lying in the street. That's where the beautiful Miss Bart ended her days. I know because I took her there 2 months ago after bumping into her in the street. It's a damnable outrage for being in a place like that. You can't go on living here. It's no place for you. Someone told me you were staying with Miss Parrish.
No, I'm boarding here. I've lived too long on my friends. Besides, I have joined the working classes. I'm learning to be a milliner. At least I was. Been out of work for a week.
Out of work? What a way to talk. The idea of you having to work, it's preposterous. Are you serious?
Perfectly serious. I am obliged to work for my living.
Good Lord. You? But what for? I know your aunt let you down. Mrs. Fisher told me about it. But I understood you got a legacy from her.
I got $10,000. But the legacy is not to be paid till next summer.
Look here, Lily, you can borrow on it anytime you want it.
For I owe it already.
Oh, it?
Everything. I think Gus Turner spoke to you once about having made money for me in stocks.
I remember something of the kind.
He made about $9,000. It was incredibly stupid of me, but I thought he'd been speculating with my own money. And I found out that he had not used my money. I had unfortunately already spent it. He meant it out of kindness, of course. It was not the kind of obligation that one could remain under. So my legacy will have to go to pay it back. That's why I'm trying to learn a trade.
But if that's the case, it clears you out altogether.
Altogether, yes.
Look here, Lily. I'm going to Europe next week. And I can't leave you like this. I can't do it. I know, it's none of my business. You've let me understand that often enough. But you have to understand, things are worse for you now than they were before. You must accept help from somebody. I'll lend you the money to pay Trevor.
What?
No, see, don't take me up until I've finished. I mean is, it'll be a plain business arrangement.
It's precisely what Gus Turner proposed. I appreciate your kindness, but a business arrangement between us would in any case be impossible. So I have no security to give you after my debt to Gus Turner has been paid.
And for pity's sake, use the letters! If you would only let me, I'd put you up over them all. I'd put you where you could wipe your feet on them.
I took no sleeping drops that night, but lay awake viewing my situation. I had never been heard in my own defense. I was innocent of the charge on which I'd been found guilty. Not because of your jealousy and maliciousness, Bertha. More and more the furies had taken on your shape. But safely locked away among my papers, I had the means of stopping your pursuit. To save yourself, you hadn't hesitated to ruin my life with a lie. Why should I hesitate to use your letters to Lawrence? I had kept them all that time. And now I was going to use them. I was sufficiently familiar with your habits to know you could be found at home after 5. You might not be at home to such an unwelcome visitor, but I know you would receive me after you got my note. I felt dizzy from lack of food and sleep when I set off. A rush of cold rain hit my face, and I had no umbrella. I was still half a mile from my destination. So I decided to walk across Madison Avenue and take the electric car. As I turned into the side street, a vague memory stirred in me. It was down this street I had walked with you, Lawrence, that September day 2 years ago. It was strange to find myself passing your house on my way to confront Bertha with her letters to you. I had such a longing to see you. I paused in the pavement and saw a light in your window. I came to say that I was sorry for the way that we parted. For what I said to you that day at Mrs. Hatch's. I wanted you to know that I left her immediately after I saw you.
Yes. Yes, I know.
But I did so because you told me to. Before you came, I had already begun to see that it would be impossible for me to remain it, for the reasons that you gave me. But I wouldn't admit it. I wouldn't let you see that I understood what you meant.
I might have trusted you to find your own way out. Don't overwhelm me with the sense of my officiousness.
It was not. I was not ungrateful.
You were very tired. Why won't you sit down and let me make you comfortable? And now, you must let me make you some tea. You know I always have that amount of hospitality at my command. You know I can coax the water to boil in 5 minutes.
No, I drink too much tea. I would rather sit quietly. I must go in a minute. I must go, but I may not see you again for a long time. I wanted to tell you that I have never forgotten the things you said to me at Bellamont about the Republic of Spirit. And that sometimes when I have seemed farthest from remembering them, they have helped me, kept me from mistakes, kept me from really becoming what many people thought me.
I'm glad to have you tell me this. But nothing I have said has really made any difference. The difference is in you. It will always be there, and since it is there, it can't really matter to you what people think.
That. Don't say that what you have told me has made no difference. It seems to shut me out and leave me all alone with other people. Once, Twice you gave me the chance to escape from my life, and I refused it. Refused it because I was a coward. Afterward, I saw my mistake, saw that I could never be happy with what had contented me before. But it was too late. You had judged me. I understood. I understood. It was too late for happiness, but not too late to learn from the thought of all that I had missed. It's all I have lived on. Don't take it from me now. Even in my worst moments, it has been like a light in the darkness. Some women are strong enough to be good by themselves, but I needed the help of your belief in me. Perhaps I might have resisted a great temptation, but the little ones have pulled me down. And I remembered. I remembered you telling me that such a life could never satisfy me, and I had been ashamed to myself to admit that I could. That's what you did for me. That's what I wanted to thank you for. I wanted to tell you that I have always remembered. But I've tried. I've tried hard, but life is difficult. And I'm a very useless person. I can hardly be said to have an independent existence. It was just a screw or a cog in the great social machine that I called life. After I dropped out of it, I found I was of no use anywhere else. After all, I was brought up to be ornamental. What can one do when one finds that one can only fit into one hole? One must get back to it, or else be thrown in the rubbish heap. You don't know what it's like in the rubbish heap.
What are you trying to tell me? Do you mean to marry?
You always told me I should come to it sooner or later.
You've come to it now.
I shall have come to it presently. But there's something I must come to first. There's someone I must say goodbye to. Not you. We are sure to see each other again. But the lily bard you knew. I have kept her with me all this time. But now we are going to part. When I go out presently, she will not go with me. But I brought her back to you, and I would like to think that she has stayed with you. She'll take up no room. She'll be no trouble. Will you let her stay with you?
Lily, can't I help you?
Do you remember what you told me once? That you helped me only by loving me. You did love me for a minute. But the moment is gone. It was I who let it go, and one must go on living. Goodbye.
Lily, I can't let you leave without knowing what you mean to do. You mustn't speak this way. Things may change, but they don't pass. You can never go out of my life.
No. No, I see that now. Let us always be friends. Then I shall feel safe whatever happens.
Whatever happens. What do you mean? What is going to happen?
Nothing. Nothing at present. Except that I'm very cold.
Oh, Gertie. How thin her hands looked as she stood in front of the fire. Her figure seemed to have shrunk, and the reflections of the flames intensified the shadows under her eyes. It occurred to me that she drew something from her dress and dropped it in the fire. I stood there, unable to break the silence, and then she was gone. When I woke the next morning, everything seemed so clear. I knew without any doubt what I had to say to Lily, and I rushed off full of joy to tell her. What happened that night, Miss Flash?
We're not absolutely sure if the doctor found the bottle of chloral.
She told me that she had been sleeping badly for a long time.
She must have taken an overdose by mistake. There is not doubt of that, no doubt at all.
The doctors were very kind. Gertie and I went through her things.
It didn't take long. There wasn't much to go through. I left Lawrence alone with her. That is what she would have wished.
She kept everything so tidy. There were 2 letters on her desk, one to the bank and the other to Augustus Tremor. She had received her legacy that day. There was a letter from the lawyer amongst her papers. I went through her checkbook and she paid off all of her debts, including the $9,000 that she owed you, Gus. The obligation had become intolerable, and she paid you back knowing that she would face unmitigated poverty.
There were in me 2 beings. One drawing deep breaths of freedom, the other gasping for air. As I lay in my bed, the horizon expanded. The air grew stronger. The free spirit quivered for flight. I had the first glimpse of the central truth of existence, the continuity of life. I thought again of the Republic of Spirit. There seemed something deeper and finer than that. And there was something I wanted to tell you. Some word I had found that would make life clear between us. I knew that if I could only say it to you, everything would be well.
We've never been at peace together. Life always just seemed to keep us apart. But at least I had loved her. And in the silence, there passed between us that word which made it all clear.